Hello there, aquatic adventurers. Welcome back to Musicland Stories, the origin point for all music and adventure stories in the known universe, and some of the unknown ones. And we're here at the Musicland Concert Hall. I'm your trusted narrator, the Captain. And last time we spoke, we were on the trail of the Last Leviathan for quite some time. A majestic creature of myth whose legendary elegy has been echoing all across the oceans. Our goal was to record the song for the archives at the Musicland Concert Hall. What better excuse for getting lost in the deep with a coterie of kids and their marvelous musical toys? Did I say lost? I meant, well, I'm pretty sure we were headed in the right direction. I was the one in the cockpit after all, while the others were gathered in the practice room below the deck. And that's where the chaos began. Margie was trying to cheer up her brother, Mingus, by teaching Ceilidh how to play the drums, which was a nice gesture, I suppose. But flippers and cymbals? Not a great combination. Meanwhile, Omar was trying to fix his trumpet, which was all bent out of shape and sounding sort of flatulent. Ezra thought this was hilarious, so he pulled out his harmonica and tried to turn the noise into an abstract blues jam. And then there was Ceilidh, sitting in the corner and diligently practicing her violin skills. Or trying to anyway. All the awful racket made it hard for her to think. The sheet music looked like squiggly lines, and she could hardly hear the thoughts in her own head. Plus, Ceilidh had this sort of adolescent wet dog smell that slowly made her stomach turn. All the overwhelming distractions made it hard to keep her chin up, literally, with her violin underneath. One by one, Ceilidh asked the others if they could maybe take a break or find another room to work out all the kinks. But they all just brushed her off, rolling their eyes before turning back to their belligerent symphony. Ceilidh was used to it. People always told her she was too serious. But the truth was, she had trouble concentrating, even when the room was quiet. And sometimes even then. Every little distraction set her off. Playing music was the only thing that made her calm. But she could barely focus on a good day, let alone with all the chaos in the room. Ceilidh turned her attention back to the music in front of her, but her violin made a violent screech. The kind of high-pitched, nails-on-a-chalkboard wail that will pierce your ears in pain. It was a genuine accident. She was just so tense that she hit a note wrong. A very, very wrong note. Oof, my ears are still ringing from it, and I was up in the cockpit. The others in the room had it worse, and they didn't hesitate to tell her as much. But Ceilidh didn't want to hear it. She was embarrassed and frustrated, and that just made her even more tense. She grabbed her violin and stormed out of the room. She returned to her quarters and tried to focus on her playing again. But like I said, sometimes even the quiet could be a distraction. Ceilidh let her eyes wander while she played, hoping to reset her frazzled mind. It's not like the sheet music was helping anyway. Then, through the window, she noticed a cluster of colorful corals, waving like a gentle breeze in the water. The polyps formed a swirl on the rocks that looked like some sort of musical notation. Something Ceilidh knew she could recognize if she wasn't so overwhelmed. Then she stopped playing, and the musical shape just sort of disappeared. The corals were still there, of course, but they just looked like regular old corals again. Ceilidh closed the curtain over the porthole, hoping to hide another distraction, and went back to practicing. Except, she still couldn't focus on the sheet music in front of her. Music was the only thing that calmed her down, but now it was stressing her out even more. Has this ever happened to you? It's not fun, is it? So what do? I can tell you how Kaylee tried to handle it. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and thought about her family. Slowly, she began to recall an old traditional reel that her parents had taught her last summer. A trilling, dancing fiddle tune. Technically still the same instrument, but played in such a different way than she was used to. She picked the violin back up and tapped along as she listened to the song in her memory. Soon enough, she found her fingers dancing instinctively up and down the neck, playing along with the melody. She felt the stress fade from her bones as she let the song take over. She was playing faster now, flying across the strings with a natural ease. Just as she found the groove, she opened her eyes and got distracted by the curtain over the window once again. It reminded her of a sea anemone, which made her think of corals, which made her recall her frustrations in the other room. Still, she tried to stay on track, desperately fiddling through the interference. Which almost worked, if I hadn't come over the intercom and ruined the moment. "Attention passengers," I said through the crackling speakers. "Does anyone have any experience with marine minotaurs? Because we seem to be trapped in some sort of liquid labyrinth." That was it. Kaylee had had enough. She ripped the curtain off the rod and saw the corals outside again. They had formed another score of musical notes. And this time, Kaylee was relaxed enough to read them. She recognized a melody not unlike the one she had just been playing. She grabbed her violin and tried to play along with the reel of the reefs. But before she could settle into the song, the ship turned away from the coral cluster until Kaylee could no longer see them out the window. Now, as the captain, I take full responsibility for this. I was the one who steered the submarine down another anthozoan alleyway right when Kaylee was about to figure out the key. In my defense, I was trying to navigate us out of a coral maze. How was I supposed to know what she was doing down there? Luckily, those colorful tendrils had already captured Kaylee's attention. She was focused now, deep in the zone where nothing could distract her. She waited at the window with her violin until the ship returned to that same labyrinth loop where the euphonic polyps were planted. The curious corals were ready for her too, each time displaying some new melody, a variation on a theme both musical and navigational. Remember, kids, practice makes a difference. Even if you're not practicing exactly what you're supposed to. Sometimes even especially then. Kaylee watched as the corals slowly parted, reshaping the polypy pathways of the maze each time she unlocked another melody. The staccato slips and rapid reels soon gave way to more mellifluous tunes, legato wafting riffs that flowed like wind and water. And each one opened up another route that could let us out of the tendrily tangle. Soon enough, the dancing revealed a light at the end of the labyrinth. Kaylee's eyes lit up with wonder, so much so that she let herself get distracted. The choral symphony began to pick up speed, and Kaylee's fingers slipped as she tried to keep up. She hit the wrong note. Again, a very, very wrong note, and then scrambled to bend the pitch up to correct it. But in her frantic state, she played so hard that the hairs of her bow snapped against the violin strings. Now Kaylee could no longer play the song the corals wanted to hear, and the corals were not happy about it. Kaylee rushed out of her room so fast she forgot to drop her broken bow. She bolted up the stairs, screaming, "Left! Turn left!" as she ran into the cockpit. But once again, the others brushed her off. "Calm down," they said. "Can't you see we're dealing with something?" "The corals showed me a song," Kaylee said. "I played along as they danced. They opened the pathways and showed me the end of the maze." The rest of the kids all looked at one another, then at Kaylee, then back again. They couldn't believe what she was saying. But I had heard enough. I jerked the steering to the left just like Kaylee said, and sure enough, I found another coral canyon awaiting our passage. Where to next? I asked. It took Kaylee a moment to recover her footing after my sharp swerve, but she rushed up behind me and began pointing out our next set of bearings. The others were still muttering about how intense she was, but I knew she was onto something. I glanced back at Kaylee. She was staring at the floor, hyper-focused on recalling her memory as she waved her broken bow like a baton, conducting our course through the coral reef labyrinth. And Kaylee was deep in the zone, where no busted trumpet or stinky seal boy could distract her now. It was a marvelous sight to behold. She leaned into her sensitivities, instead of getting overwhelmed and winding herself tight. And the rest of the ship leaned with her as we wound our way through the waters, and the colorful little tendrily rock plant creatures that made up the maze in the first place. The others erupted in a round of cheers when they finally saw the light at the end of the labyrinth. Even then, Kaylee didn't let the noise break her concentration. She stayed focused until we were well past the last loop of corals. She finally looked up just in time to see the last little creature fade into the darkness of the water. She could have sworn she saw it wave goodbye. Kaylee stayed with me in the cockpit while the rest of the crew went back down to the practice room, inspired, in part, by her calm concentration. Soon enough, the excitement flushed out of Kaylee's system, and she could feel the sadness coming on again. "How am I gonna find another bow?" she sighed. "Without it, I can't play. And then I can't concentrate either." "Sometimes you need a song to see through all the noise," I told her. "But sometimes you've got to find the melody inside yourself." Of course, Kaylee wasn't listening to that last part. She was too distracted by what appeared to be the ruins of a sunken city glittering in the distance. We were still a ways away from it, but at least now we knew how to find the path. Until next time, this is your captain. Out. Musicland Stories is a collaboration between Starglow Media and Double Elvis. Executive producers from Double Elvis are Jake Brennan and Brady Sattler. Executive producers from Starglow Media are Jed Baker and Agarenish A. Palmer. This episode of Musicland Stories was written by Tom Dunn. Alessandro Santoro is our showrunner. Narration by me, Nikki Lynette. Original score by Scott Janovitz. Story editing by Zeph Lundy. And episode mix by Colin Fleming. Grown-ups, you can find more ad-free audio fun for the whole family by subscribing to Starglow Plus on Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts.